our activities in fighting terrorists and insurgents across the country. But I would like to start by saying that the emotional cost of waking up to the horrific news of the passing of our beloved Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General T.A. Lagbaja, is quite intense. It is indeed a sad moment for us in the armed forces. It is against this background that, on behalf of the Chief of Defense Staff, General C.G. Musa, officers and men of the armed forces, express our heartfelt condolences to his lovely wife, his children, and his entire family. We pray the Lord grant us all the fortitude to bear this irreparable loss. I believe in the coming days, burial arrangement for him will be released. Having said that, I know clearly that citizens understand that we are fighting a war against terrorists and insurgents. In this war, we must also understand that in spite of our loss, and a great loss in these circumstances, we have no option but to continue fighting these terrorists, as we all know that they will not stop until they are stopped. I can say that our troops have done a tremendous job of significantly dismantling these terror groups across our nation, particularly in the various theaters of operations that we are engaged in. Our strategy remains to undermine the ability of these terror groups and their cohorts. Accordingly, troops have conducted simultaneous strikes on several terrorist enclaves and their hideouts across this country. Our Air Force have carried out bombardments and air interdiction on several terrorist hideouts and enclaves with precision. These strikes have significantly diminished the fighting capabilities of these terrorists. And it is indeed true that these terrorists know that they cannot match our military strength. They therefore have no option but to either surrender or be killed in the battlefield. Accordingly, I can confirm, without listing names at this time, that we have several terrorist leaders, commanders, and combatants, particularly in the north-central part of this country, that have indicated interest to surrender. For this reason and this purpose, we are opening a surrendering corridor for them. It is noteworthy to state that in October 2024, troops neutralized 481 terrorists. We arrested 741 persons connected with terrorism and insurgency, and we rescued 492 kidnapped hostages during the month of October. Troops have also significantly destroyed the terrorist fighting capabilities by the reported outcomes that I just listed. Furthermore, troops recovered 480 weapons and over 9,000 assorted ammunition in the course of the month of October 2024. These recoveries illustrate how troops have diminished the military capabilities of these terrorists. Indeed, troops also denied the oil theft of close to 4 billion naira in the month of October. This speaks to demonstrate how troops have curbed crude oil theft and how our operations have boosted the nation's daily crude oil production in helping us meet our daily targets. Now the breakdown of the recovered items for the month of October as follows. We recovered 264 AK-47 rifles, 47 pump action guns, and over 5,000 rounds of 7.62 millimeter special ammunition, among other items recovered in the month of October. Troops also recovered over 3 million liters of stolen crude oil, over 760,000 liters of illegally refined AGO, best described as diesel, and over 12,000 liters of PMS, best described as petrol, among other items recovered in the month of October. I will now take us through our various operational theaters, beginning with the Northeast Theater, where we have Operation Hadenkei. The troops of Operation Hadenkei sustained the tempo against terrorists and their cohorts in the Northeast Theater of Operation. The troops conducted synchronized offensives between the Air Force and the ground forces. These synchronized offensives struck on terrorist enclaves and hideouts, dislodging them. Indeed, the exerted military pressure on the terrorists resulted in some significant outcomes. Overall, during the month of October, the troops of Operation Hadenkei neutralized 198 terrorists, arrested 166 persons engaged in terrorism and insurgency, and rescued 156 kidnapped hostages in the course of the operations. Troops also recorded 257 surrendered terrorist combatants and their families. And this is what we are hoping will soon begin in the North Central Theater of Operation shortly. The summary of recovered items include 73 AK-47 rifles, 1,574 rounds of 7.62 millimeter special ammunition, among other items recovered. We can now move to the North Central, where we have Operation Safe Haven. The troops of Operation Safe Haven conducted offensive operations that dominated that theater of operation. Accordingly, the plateau has experienced relative peace across the state. These are not my words, these are the words of the state governor of Plateau State. During the month of October, troops of Operation Safe Haven neutralized 30 violent extremists, arrested 140 of them, and rescued 105 kidnapped hostages. The troops of Operation Safe Haven also recovered 19 AK-47 rifles, 834 rounds of 7.62 millimeter special ammunition, among others. Now, the recoveries of these weapons and ammunition are indicative of how we are destroying the terrorist and the violent extremist military capabilities, as well as their fighting capabilities. Let us remain in the North Central and take a look at Operation Wild Stroke. The troops of Operation Wild Stroke prevailed over terrorists and their cohorts. That operation is engaged in Benue, Nasarawa, and Taraba states. And during the month of October, the troops of Operation Wild Stroke neutralized 20 terrorists, rescued 60 kidnapped hostages, among other items recorded during the period. The troops also recovered 18 AK-47 rifles, 741 rounds of 7.62 millimeter special ammunition, among several other items recovered. Let's now cross over to the Northwest. A lot is happening in the Northwest, and I will speak about it shortly. The troops of Operation Hadirindaji in the Northwest remained focused on their mission, and their mission is to create a conducive and stable security environment for agricultural activities and other forms of socio-economic activities in the following states: Kaduna State, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, and Zamfara, all in the Northwest. The troops embarked on several offensive operations, canalizing and destroying terrorists in their hideouts and their enclaves through ground and air operations. Nevertheless, troops are confronted with a new terrorist sect in the Northwest. This sect is known as Lakurawa. The Lakurawas are affiliated to terrorists from the Sahel, particularly from Mali and Niger republics. They began incursion into northwestern part of Nigeria, namely Sokoto and Kebbi states. And like I mentioned, they came in from Niger and the Mali axis. Now, why are we seeing this at this time? This came as a result of the coup that took place in Niger Republic. Prior to the coup, we had joint border operations with Nigerian security forces, which kept these terrorists at bay. Now, when that coup took place and there was a breakdown of cooperation between both countries, the terrorists took advantage of the gaps in cooperation and made incursions into northwest Nigeria. They exploited the difficult terrains and made incursions into remote areas in our northwestern states. And when they came in, they started spreading their ideology. Now the issue is, when they came in, did the people see them? They saw them. What did they do? They embraced them. rather than report them. And what has that resulted to? The people saw them as friends. The same friends they thought were friends have turned to foes. And we did not get this report on time until they started creating some havoc. Nevertheless, we are on top of that situation. We have sustained our intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and accordingly carried out air interdiction, ground offensives to degrade these terrorists, find them, flush them, until we finally defeat them, the same way we have defeated terrorist groups in the northeastern part of this country. Okay. Troops are locating them, like I mentioned, and we are eliminating them. Now to other operations. Still on the northwest, I will say that the troops of Operation Hadirin Daji neutralized 163 terrorists, arrested 82 suspects engaged in terrorism and insurgency, and we rescued 80 kidnapped hostages in the course of the month of October 2024. Additionally, troops recovered 121 AK-47 rifles and over 1,000 rounds of 7.62 millimeter NATO ammunition, among others. Like I said, these recoveries speaks about our degrading the fighting and the military capabilities of these terrorists. Still in the northwest, let's take a peep into Operation Wild Punch. The troops of Operation Wild Punch recorded the following in the month of October. Troops neutralized 30 terrorists, arrested over 111 of them, and rescued 52 kidnapped hostages in the course of the month of October. The troops of Operation Wild Stroke equally recovered 9 AK-47 rifles, 16 assorted arms, and over 160 rounds of 7.62 millimeter special ammunition, among other items recovered. Now to our operations in the South-South, where we have Operation Delta Safe. The troops of Operation Delta Safe maintained the momentum against the activities of crude oil theft. Troops continued to find and destroy illegal refining sites, as well as arrest perpetrators of oil theft. Additionally, troops have, through their operations, recorded a progressive increase in the nation's daily crude oil production target, with over 1.5 million barrels per day recorded as at today. During the month of October, troops of Operation Delta Safe arrested 126 persons involved in crude oil theft. The troops also denied the oil theft of over 3.2 million liters of stolen crude oil, over 760,000 liters of illegally refined AGO, as well as over 12,000 liters of illegally refined PMS. Furthermore, the troops of Operation Delta Safe recovered over 429 assorted ammunition, destroyed 195 wooden boats, as well as 216 illegal refining sites, among others. Now to the southeast, where we have Operation Udoka. The troops of Operation Udoka conducted offensive operations against the indigenous people of Biafra and their Eastern Security Network terror group in several of the eastern states, killing these terrorists, making arrests, and making recoveries of weapons and ammunition. Activities of the indigenous people of Biafra terror group were recorded in the following eastern states. We had activities recorded in Abia, Anambra, Ebonyi, Imo, and Enugu states, all in the month of October. In all these incidences, several of these terrorists were killed and arrested. I believe in my earlier briefs, I have released names of those killed and even those arrested. Overall, the troops of Operation Udoka in the month of October neutralized 40 terrorists, arrested 55 of them, and rescued 35 kidnapped hostages in the month of October. Additionally, troops recovered 21 AK-47 rifles and 24 pump-action guns, among several items recovered in the course of our operations. In closing, I would like to say that on the whole, even as we mourn, the armed forces will not allow the tragic passing away of our beloved Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tariq Lagbaja. We will not allow his passing away to derail our focus on destroying the terrorists. We remember him to be a fighter, a warrior. We are inspired by his fighting spirit. So rather than allow his passing away to derail us in fighting the terrorists, we are rather motivated by his actions as a warrior and strong desire as a commander to defeat the terrorists and end the war. We will take a cue from his fighting spirit and end the war. Accordingly, the military will continue to work decisively to kill the terrorists, stop the insecurity, and ensure the safety of our citizens. I urge citizens to be rest assured that the armed forces remains in a good and strong position in this war, and we will win this war. Thank you. Kids' gloves. We see you, we'll take you out. You will not even live to tell the story. And it is yielding results, the expected results that we want. Our daily crude oil production for the nation is progressively increasing day by day, which is what we want. Because we all know that oil is the mainstay of our economy, and more than ever before, we need our economy to be richer so that the people can enjoy the benefits of what the economy can give to them. Now, last but not the least, is what you see on your screen. Now, I hereby declare these terrorists as wanted persons. I hereby declared wanted. They carried out very heinous crimes in the Northeast. We have been after them and finally have all their details as we have put out on the screen. The contact numbers for anybody who cites them are there. I will give each and every one of you this, and I would like you to disseminate it as far reaching as possible. Thank you. Like I said earlier, we will draw inspiration for what he lived for. We will not allow his passing away to derail our strategic and operational objectives, because that is not what he would have wanted. He was a warrior. He spent a lot of his life in the battlefront. His strong desire was for us to end this terrorism, to defeat the terrorists both on the battlefield and wherever, and bring peace back to citizens of this country. So rather than allow his passing away to derail us, we take motivation to go forcefully after these terrorists and defeat them and end this insecurity once and for all. Now, to your other question about how the breakdown of cooperation between Niger Republic and Nigeria as a result of that coup allowed the penetration of another terrorist sect using that gap that was created. We're in a better place today because both countries are communicating. The militaries are once again cooperating. And definitely, we are going to put those terrorists at bay, and we are going to find and flush out those ones that have come in, called the Lacroix. And it tells me to say that which I've always said, winning this war without the support of the people is close to impossible. When those people came in, the citizens welcomed them. They did not report them. They thought they were saints. Until they now had a grip of them and started doing funny things with them. And then we started hearing. And we are now reactive. So we warn and we say, please, help us to help you. If you see strangers in your community, your locality, you don't understand them, let us know so that we know what to do. We will take care of that situation, no doubt about it. As for the development and how it relates, we've spoken about Chad. I'm yet to get any confirmation on that. But what I can say, that Chad pulling out of the multinational joint task force, I'm yet to get any confirmation on that. But what I can say is that terrorism is a global phenomenon. No one country can do it alone. No one country can do it alone. It is a global phenomenon. We need to work not only from nation to curb it, we need to extend the frontiers from nation to region to world. And that is why, even as we fight here, we have international partners. from all over the world coming in to provide different kinds of support, ranging from intelligence to training to weapons, because they know it's a global phenomenon. The JTF is an example of how to regionally tackle terrorism. There are other places in the world that are learning and understanding how it has worked and how they can use it in their region. So I do not see how we will fold our hands and allow that to crumble. There is no wisdom in it. But like I said, I have no confirmation. We'll get more information on that and pass it across. Thank you. I'll go to the right. Now about, you're talking about soldiers. You reported that you mentioned that you asked rather, that some soldiers in Baga dropped their weapons and declared wanted. Okay, let me tell you what that is called in military law. It's called desertion. If it does not happen, or if it can't happen, it will not be in the law. Do you get me? It is in the law for a purpose, because it is anticipated that that kind of thing can happen. So when it happens, what do? You look for those soldiers. So they have done what is called desertion. And it's not uncommon in war, and it's not uncommon to only Nigeria. And that's why we have it in the law. So when you commit that offense, we look for you. That offense may have come out of cowardice, which is also in the law. Do you understand me? The military law recognizes cowardice. So if you perform an act of cowardice, we will deal with you appropriately. If you carry out desertion, we will deal with you appropriately. So if they have abandoned their weapons, thank God they left the weapons. At least they didn't go and give it to the enemy. So we will now look for them and mete out justice to them. Thank you. Yes. This new group that has penetrated the northwestern part of the country, known as the Lakurawas, they are affiliated to ISIS in the Sahelian region. And it is indeed the first attempt of the Sahelian jihadists to have a foothold in our country. Like I mentioned earlier, they were kept at bay all this while when we had joint cross-border operations with the Republic of Niger. However, when the coup took place in Niger, they took advantage of the breakdown in cooperation between both countries, which has now been restored. They took advantage of that breakdown to make incursions through the difficult terrain to remote locations around the outskirts of the northwestern part of our country, some of those states. We know exactly where they are as I speak to you. Now, what are the issues? When they came in, the locals recognized that they had strangers in their midst. Recognizing that you have strangers in your midst, the proper thing to do is to let the authorities know. But they embraced them, thinking that they were going to sort of protect them from terrorists or whatever. and allowed them to settle in and spread their ideology. Having settled in and gained a foothold, they started imposing certain levies and whatever on the people. And the people now started like, oh, what's going on here? It was at that point that they felt the need to notify. That is not the time to notify. You notify immediately you see something strange. So, winning this war clearly without the support of the people is impossible. So I continue to say that and beg on Nigerians to help us to help you. Now that we know, we're finding them, we're flushing them out. They came in just the same way we have something like Boko Haram. They're telling you the men should keep long beard. They're telling you the women must wear hijab and whatever. They're telling you the men must have jump-up trouser. And so many other things like that. So, they are easy to find based on their traits. So, we're on that situation. That's the much I can say right now. The issue of surrendering. I have indeed said that the terrorists are left with the option of surrender or die on the battlefield. There is no third option. And when I say or speak about surrender, surrender is an act of war. In war, there is a thing known as surrendering. When the enemy comes and raises his hand up and drops his weapon, it is a crime to shoot at him. And we are a professional force. They have indicated that they want to surrender. They are afraid if we will take them out in the process, and we have assured them that we will create a safe corridor for them to surrender, drop their arms, and we will receive them. After all, we are receiving surrender terrorists in the Northeast already. So we are not new to it. To the issue of PTSD, because that question has to do with PTSD. I tell you that our troops have been exposed to battle for upwards of 10 years. When you have been in battle for that long, the issue of PTSD is not far-fetched. Recognizing this, the military has put in place PTSD management centers to help such personnel who might be suffering from it. That is to say that we recognize it exists. When you recognize a problem, it is half solved. We recognize it exists, and we are doing something about it. We call on citizens to help us too. We have experts out there. If there are things that you think we should do or should know more about, help us to get better at it. That's the much I can say for now. Have I answered all the questions, or have I missed anything? All right.